Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Balan, and welcome to the Urban Permaculture Workshop by Society of Wings. Just to share, I'm a trainer for Wings, and I teach people how to grow organic food, recycle, compost, and much, much more. Today, we have a brief outline of the things that I'd like to share with you. It covers basically the types of foods that we want to grow and its benefits, the types of herbs, leafy greens that I would recommend beginners to grow, how to sow your own seeds, care for your plantlings, repurpose plastic bottles, containers, and herb propagation. That is one interesting thing that I like to share with you. The last bit is a composting bin. How can we actually design a simple composting bin and how does it work? And then we'll come on to the Q&A session, okay? First, let me give you an introduction to the types of plants or vegetables or leafy greens that you can actually grow at home. The first one that I have under the second camera, if you look over here, this is English lavender. I've actually propagated it from the mother plant. A mother plant is a bigger plant, the main plant actually, if you look at it. So this is another species altogether. So just imagine a big lavender plant, okay? So we call this a mother plant. What I do is I take a cutting. Okay, I'll show you how to do that later on. And I teach you how to propagate it, putting it in a cup or a container, right? So this is English lavender. So it's quite nice to smell. So instead of buying the essence oil, you require a burner, you require tea lights and stuff like that. You can do away without all of those, and then you can just propagate your lavender plant, and yeah, it smells rather nice. This is one that I will recommend for you to grow. Okay. The next one that I have for you is basil. Okay. So basil is another easy herb to grow. Let me just put this in the center of the camera. I hope you can see this. Okay, so this is taken from a mother plant also, and you can grow this also at home. I use it for garnishing, cooking pasta and stuff like that. So some ideas actually. The other one that I have for you, this is Brazilian spinach. Okay, so this has a lot of leaves. So the secret with plants, right? The more you prune, the more leaves it gives you. So pruning actually helps them generate more leaves. Okay, so this is something that you can grow, and you can actually propagate through cuttings also. I'll show you how to do this. We'll come to that in a while. So the next one is a superfood that I have over here. This is kale, okay? Kale. So it gives you a lot of leaves. It's a superfood in the world right now, and everybody's buying it. So instead of buying, you can just grow your own. Right? This is a rather hardy plant to grow in Singapore. And the last few that I have for you is mint. Okay, this is a mint plant. I've actually soaked this in water to give it some roots. I'll show you in a while how we can do this also, okay? The next plant that I have for you is Okinawa spinach that you can grow. So these are all cuttings from the mother plant. So I tend to propagate them so that they start a new plant altogether, okay? And this over here is the giant plant. It's Cuban oregano. It has a rather nice scent. You can use this for cooking with chicken, okay? So what we're going to learn today is how to grow your own food, okay? So we'll start with having some soil. People ask me, what types of soil do I recommend, okay? I would recommend using organic soil. Organic soil is not laced with harsh chemicals, so it's friendly on the skin. So we need a container or a pot. I have this little pot over here, okay? So what we do next is we scoop some soil into the pot. We're going to fill it all the way up. All the way up. So we're going to pat it down. Just try to center this for you. There we go. Okay, so it should look something like this. What we do next is we take a chopstick. So the question that I have or people ask me is, what's the depth to actually sow the seeds down into the soil, okay? So about 1 inch or slightly more than 1 inch. So you take a chopstick like this over here. You make a few holes, right? About 1 inch or slightly more than 1 inch. Okay. So we get some seeds. We could use repurpose one of these spoons to actually drop your seeds down, okay? So you just drop the seeds into the hole. Just a few, maybe about 4 to 5, that's fine. Okay. What you want to do next, right, is you want to cover. You just close the little holes that you made earlier on, pat the soil down. The whole idea is for the seed to come into contact with the soil so they can germinate properly. They have a proper footing when they actually grow, okay? So now we've actually put the seed into the soil, okay? What we do next is we want to water the soil. So the question that people ask is, how much water do I add? And when do we, the frequency of watering, okay? The questions that people ask me. So we want to water morning or afternoon, but never at night. And how much to water? So if you water, let's say you could water using an angle bottle like this, all right? The angle bottle. For small seeds, I would recommend using an angle bottle or spraying. So you water until it starts to drip. You don't want it to run, so you just water a while, wait for it, and then the water will start to drip at the bottom. That's good enough. And you put it away from the direct sunlight. So I would say put in a shady area, but you have indirect light, okay? So what types of number of hours that you require sunlight? You require sunlight for about 4 to 6 hours on average, okay? And you water once a day, that's fine, okay? But water morning or afternoon, but never at night, because at night you don't have photosynthesis going on. So I'm going to share with you how to make your own organic fertilizer to feed your own plants. So you take a small piece of seaweed from here, inside the bag. So this is a 1.5 liter bottle, okay? I use this to water my plants actually. So the size is maybe about this size, okay? You put it in. Just one small piece will be fine. And then you fill it up with water. You set it aside for 6 to 8 hours. What's going to happen is seaweed actually dissolves. And whatever can dissolve will dissolve. Whatever that's not dissolved will be sediment at the bottom. After 6 to 8 hours, you can actually use it to water your plants. So with this, I would have attached a small little nozzle like this, and I would start watering my plants over here, okay? I would recommend, if you have seedlings, right, smaller plants, I wouldn't recommend using this without a nozzle, because you might actually, when you give it a big splash, you might unroot or uproot the small plant, okay? So you water morning or afternoon, but never at night. As it grows and you fertilize the plant, it starts to grow into a bigger plant. So next, I want to share with you the types of things that you can actually use at home to make your own fertilizer. We have right now over here, we have eggshells, okay? Eggshells over here. So the question that people have is, do I need to remove the lining? Do I need to put it out do I need to bake it? Do I need to wash it? I don't do any of that, to be honest. What I do is I just put it out into the sun just to dry it out, okay? Once it's dried, right, I put it in a Ziploc bag like this. What I do next is I use a rolling pin, or in this instance, I recycle or repurpose a little tin can that looks something like this. And I start to smash it down, okay? I wouldn't want to do this because right now over here, because it might actually rock the camera a bit. So I'll just leave it to your imagination. What you have after that is something that looks like this. Okay, I hope you can see this. So you can now add this as fertilizer to your plants. It's a bit of calcium, right, to give you healthy plants. So this is what you can do with your eggshell. So you do not have to throw them away. You can put them to good use, okay? So if you have pests, right, fungi or mold, for instance, another recommendation that I have for you is you could use cinnamon powder. How do you use this, right? Okay, so you get a cup like this. I just want you to imagine that this is a normal cup, okay? You put in some cinnamon powder, you put in hot water, you give it a mix. While it's cooling down, right? Once it's cooled down, what you do is you empty the contents using a funnel like this, okay? And you pour it down. What you can do next is, once it's all cool and nice, you use this to mist your plants, okay? So it's all good to go, all right? So this helps with fungi, mold, and stuff like that. Okay? So this is how you can actually prevent mites of mold, okay? What we're going to do next is I'm going to share with you how we can do propagate some lemongrass at home. So let's say you go to the local supermarket, you buy a bag of lemongrass, okay? I'll show you a little neat trick here. So what we need to do is we cut off the stem, okay? So we can use the top stem. We leave about 1 to 2 inches, all right? 1 to 2 inches. What we do next is we put it in a cup. Like this. And we start to soak it with a little bit of water, that's fine. So you need to change this, to take note, you need to change the water every day. That's a safer bet against dengue and mosquitoes and stuff like that. You don't want all of that, okay? So over time, what will happen is you will have something like this. You can see they start to grow. All right. So once you start to see the formation of roots, right? Let's say roots start to grow out from here, you can just put them into soil and they'll grow into a big plant for you. So this is how you can have fresh lemongrass. Next is I'm going to share with you how to grow shallot chives. So I want you to imagine that this is filled with soil. This cup is filled with soil, okay? So let me just show you how we can do this. One moment. So you have a cup. You fill it up with soil. All the way slightly to the top, okay? Let me just get some more soil, one moment. There we go. So what we do next is we have this little shallot, shallot chives, shallots, okay. You place this down. You want the hairy part, right, to actually touch the bottom of the soil, okay? The little bulb. So what you're going to do next is you're going to mist it every day. And if I could make a reference to the picture that I have over here, there's a slide over here that will show you what it looks like. It has a smiley face, okay? So you've got your shallot chives actually growing out through the cup. You can do this at home. Just to share with you, for the cup, you require 2 drainage holes at the bottom, like I'm going to show you over here. All right? So now the question is, how do I make these drainage holes? You can either use a soldering iron like the one that I have over here. Let me just get this across. Okay. This is a soldering iron. I hope you can see this. Or you could use a screwdriver. Like this, okay? So to use the screwdriver, what you do is you put it on a flame, heat it up, and then you make your little holes like this, okay? So you require a minimum of 2 to 3 holes, but 1 hole, it doesn't really work. The idea is you want proper drainage. If not, your plants may drown, okay? Or you may experience root rot. For the soldering iron, you just give it some power, it starts to heat up. Once it's all ready, you just make the holes like what you see over here, okay? That's what you can do. So this is how you can actually make holes without using other tools. You can just use your soldering iron or you can use a screwdriver. So I'm going to show you next how we can actually propagate herbs, or how you can actually grow your own plants using stem propagation. So this is the mother plant that you see over here. This is a big plant, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to take a cutting. When I say a cutting is we're going to use the scissors, a clean scissors, and we're just going to cut a little stem out from here, okay? So just let me just cut this out. Okay, so it will look something like this, or something like this over here. So what we're going to do next, right? We're going to remove the extra leaves. We're just going to keep about maybe 4 to 5 leaves from the top. So it will look something like this, okay? Let me just clear out this mess. Okay, next what we're going to do is we need a cup with holes. There we go. So a cup with 2 holes that you can see over here. So we're going to fill this cup with soil. Let me just clean up this table a little bit. All right, so the cup goes down. The little cutting stays here. What we do next is we load the cup with soil, okay? All right, if you want to fill it up to about 3/4 full. So it will look something like this. Cheers. Okay, what we need next is a chopstick. Why we need a chopstick? So we're going to make a hole in the center, okay? Because if you don't make a hole in the center with the help of a chopstick, right, and you push the stem down, you might actually injure the stem, okay? And just to share with you, the places where we actually remove the leaves, right, these are called nodes, and this is where the root system will actually grow out from, okay? So what we do is we put this plant down, all the way down. Okay, so gently put it down. And we pat the surrounding soil around it, just to give it a firm support, okay? So this is how we actually propagate herbs. This is one technique. There are many ways, in fact. What we do next is we get a cover. So a cover like this. You can actually get, like when you buy bubble tea, you can actually use these cups. They come with this kind of dome-shaped covers also. So you cover like this, all right? So it would look something like this. So the idea right now when you actually do this, right, is for the bottom leaves not to touch the soil because they will rot. So you just want to ensure that the bottom leaves do not touch the soil. So for care requirements, right, what are the care requirements? It's the same. What we need to do is you water morning or afternoon once, but never at night. So you remove, I'm going to demonstrate how we can actually care for this. Okay, so you remove the cover. So I get an angled bottle like this, and I water the plant, all right? So how much water they ask? So you water till it actually drips, okay? Just give it a while, the water will go down and it starts to drip. And then you cover, you put it back. You want to put it away from direct sunlight and you have indirect sunlight. So you give it about 10, every day you need to water it, water morning or afternoon, but never at night, and you water it every day, okay? And maybe after 10 days, what you need to do is you just remove the cover. You remove the cover, gently remove the cover, and you give it a tap. If you find that there's resistance, right, that would mean that the root system has actually grown out, okay? So you can actually completely remove the cover, and you can put this out in full sunlight and grow out another plant altogether. And as it grows bigger, it grows out of the cup, you can actually repot it to a bigger pot, so you can actually start a mother plant like this altogether. Okay? So this is one technique that you can actually propagate, that you can use to propagate your herbs also. The other technique that you can use, if you have a bigger plant, right? If you have a bigger plant. So I want you to imagine there's a big plant inside here. You can actually use a half-cut water bottle and you can actually cover it this way. You can actually do that also, okay? So these are just some ideas of recycling that you can actually use at home. So what I'm going to share with you next is some slides that I'll just give you some background about. So in order to grow microgreens, right, like you see the one where I'm standing outside my corridor and on the right side of the slide, you have some microgreens growing. You can actually use containers like this. You just need a primary and a secondary container. So a primary container will be something like this, a small one, and you can actually make lots of holes, okay? And then you have a secondary container like this. So these are actually takeaway tubs that you can get from your local food source, okay, or your food guy. So you make holes, you put it down, okay, so you can actually fill the secondary container with water. This is how you can hydrate your plants also, all right? So this is how you can actually recycle containers, one idea that you can actually do at home. Next, I'm going to share with you how we can actually do cuttings and actually propagate them using through water instead of soil. This is not what we saw. We saw stem cutting, herb propagation using soil method, okay? So now we're going to use water. So you have small plants like this. You have a primary cup and a secondary cup. Let me just put this down over here. So this is mint being propagated in water actually. So what we need to do is to change the water every day, okay? So you take 2 cups, you have a small cup and a big cup. So you use a soldering iron, you make holes at the bottom like what you see over here. You cut the stems and you put them through, you pull them through like this. Okay? And you let them sit down in water like this. So you give it a couple of days, maybe about 5 to 6 days, they start to root itself. You start to see roots growing out. And you can actually take a pot, fill it up with soil, use a chopstick, make a hole, and then you can actually put the newly rooted mint plants into the soil. Okay, and that is how you start another batch of plants. So the last thing that I want to share with you is how to make your own compost bin. So we have 2 tubs over here. So you require 2 tubs, okay? This is small in design, so you just use your imagination if you want to do it bigger, okay? So these are 2 tubs. Let me just turn on the soldering iron. Okay, while we wait for the soldering iron to heat up, right? Let me share with you what we can also do with a half-cut water bottle like this. There's a slide that I want to share with you. It has lettuce growing out from a half-cup water bottle. If you look, so a half-cut bottles actually, okay? So you can actually turn this, invert this, and you can grow lettuce from here. So if you look at the pictures that I have, right, you can actually do this at home also. So moving on to composting, right? So why I do composting is because I have a lot of organic matter that I can actually recycle and I use it as organic fertilizer for my plants. Okay, I use, there's 2 methods here. There's heat composting and there's earthworm composting. What's the difference? One is based on heat and organic soil that has microorganisms and humidity to break down all the organic matter. The other one is you use earthworms. I use Malaysian blue earthworms to help me break down the organic matter, and I collect all the drippings and all the compost and I actually feed them to my plants as organic fertilizer. So it's something that you can consider. And if you look at the picture, the composting picture that I have where I have a few tubs, right? The one on the left, it is actually seated on soil, okay? It has holes at the bottom over here. It has holes at the bottom over here. And all the drippings go into the soil. So this is one way you can recharge your soil. So you can fertilize your soil and let it take up all the soak in all the nutrients, and later on you can actually use that soil to grow your food also. So that is one way you can actually do that. Okay. So let me see whether the soldering iron is hot and ready. So let's see. So you have 2 tubs just to share with you. You have a primary and a secondary tub. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we're going to make some holes. So you're going to make 4 holes on the side. That's 1. That's 2. I hope you can see this. Yeah. That's 3, and that's 4. Okay, so I'll come to why we make the holes on the side later on, okay? So we need drainage holes at the bottom. Almost there. All right, there we go. Let me just turn off the power. So these are drainage holes. These are holes for ventilation, the ones at the top. So we use micropore tape, okay? These are breathing patches, actually, I call them. You patch them up. I'll show you what it looks like finally, okay? There we go. All right. So you just patch them up. Okay. This is for gas exchange. So you don't want other stuff to actually come in and out. Okay. So what we do next is you have the secondary tub, right? You put your primary tub on top. You put in your organic soil. Okay. You put in your organic soil. You put in your organic matter, banana peels, so on and so forth. Okay. No meats, no citrus fruit. I wouldn't recommend citrus fruits. Okay. And then you put in your newspaper, your leaves. You give it a good mist. You just want to keep the humidity going. You don't want it to dry up. And you place it in maybe a sheltered area. Okay. So what's going to happen is the microorganisms, the heat, the humidity will break down all your organic matter for you. If you have liquid drippings that come down over here on the secondary tub, you can actually pour them into a funnel, and then you can dilute it with water and feed it to your plants also. There's no mosquitoes that can come in because it sits tightly down over here. Okay. So this is how you can actually design a simple compost bin. So in concept wise, you can actually make it bigger, make it smaller. It's up to your imagination actually. So folks, that's all I have for you right now. We probably move on to the Q&A section. So let me just hear whether you have any questions for me. Okay, the first question is, how do you know if you're over or under watering? Thanks for the question. Through your powers of observation, I would say. So if the plant looks healthy, right, and if you underwater, right, okay, if you underwater, it will start to look very limp. The plant will look rather limp. What you can do it's a test case. So what you can do is, I just want you to imagine that this is a smaller container with water, okay? The smaller container with water, and your plant looks limp. What you do is, you let it have a soak, okay? 1 to 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, okay? And see it slowly come back to life. So that will actually tell you that, hey, you're actually underwatering, all right? For overwatering, I would say that it'll start to rot, okay? It'll start to rot, and you'll see that your plant slowly starts to wither and the whole plant will actually collapse. So that is a sign of overwatering. And if you touch the soil, it's always wet. That is a sign of overwatering also, okay? I hope I answered your question. The next question that I have is it difficult to grow mint? No, mint is fairly easy to grow. The best way to root it is to actually grow it in water, root it in water like this first, and then propagate it into soil. If you ask me for my opinion, if I try using soil and I use water, I would say for mint especially, it's easier to root in water. And when you buy a pot of mint, always take some cuttings and try to root them first. So that way, if the main pot goes, the mother plant goes, you have a secondary backup. You have primary plants that you can actually start all over again with, okay? The question number 3, is there a special type of seaweed reference to one of the plants the trainer showed earlier? Yes, thanks for the question. So you can buy any type of seaweed, but just to make sure it is not seasoned or salted, buy the ones that are roasted. Thank you for the question. Yes. Okay. Question. Okay. Eggshells. Eggshells. How often and how much do I add to the plant? So you can actually fertilize your plants fortnightly. When you want to fertilize your plant, the best practice I recommend is, right, be adding any type of fertilizer, is to try and keep it away from the stem of the plant. So just in case that fertilizer might burn the stem of the plant, all right? So put it around the pot, okay? And how often? So you will either weekly or fortnightly, I would recommend. And how much to add? So the best gauge is to add maybe, if it's a medium-sized pot or a small-sized pot like this one, right? Like this over here, okay? I would say use maybe a teaspoon. Try it, and also the best practice I recommend is try it on one of your plants instead of all your plants all together. So in case of a mishap, right, that is with all types of fertilizers that you're going to use. Try it or test it on one plant first. So just in case that you don't use a type of fertilizer that is quite potent and it starts to burn all your plants, all right? So just try it on one plant first. How much to use? Try half of the recommended dose if there's instructions, okay? And see the next day, for the next few days, right, observe the behavior of the plant. See how it's coping and how it's welcoming the new nutrients, okay? I can root, okay, the next question is, I can root lemongrass easily, but when I plant them in soil and leave them outside, they eventually die. How can I keep them alive? Okay, so what you can do is, so once you root them in water, right, and you try maybe this soil type and it starts to die, I would suggest changing to another type of soil type and see whether that actually meets the requirements of the root grass, sorry, the lemongrass, okay? So that's one way we can actually find out. So sometimes the soil type may not be comfortable with the lemongrass. So change to another soil type and see whether it works for you, okay? How to prevent, the next question is how to prevent lemongrass from getting moldy at the base in the garden. Okay, that's what I would suggest is maybe you could try using cinnamon powder. Mix it in a cup of hot water, dilute this, okay? Once it's cooled down, funnel this into a misting bottle and just spray and see what happens, okay? Where to buy the soil, okay? I recommend using organic soil. You can buy them from your local supermarkets or your garden centers. They have organic soil over there, okay? I missed the first 5 minutes of the program. Do you use potting soil or compost? I use compost actually. So I prefer compost because it takes time to actually break down. It has an opportunity to slowly break down also. So that acts as a form of fertilizer for me also for the plants. So I don't use potting soil. I actually use compost actually. What type of soil to buy? Okay, so you buy the type of soil that is loamy. Loamy meaning to say it's loose to feel. It's very light, fluffy, nice. It's very gentle on your hands, not the type where it's clumpy and stuff like that. So that is the texture of soil I would recommend, okay? Okay, so can we reuse soil from dead plants we have bought previously to grow these edible plants? Yes, you can. So you place the soil, right, over in one corner, okay? So let it sort of rest, okay? What you can do is let it dry out. So for some people, they shared that, you know, my soil has pests and stuff like that. These are soft-bodied creatures that require moisture to survive and thrive most of the time. So what we can do is just let it dry out. And once it's completely dried out, right, you can actually put in some banana peels and then water it down. So let it slowly break down and recharge the soil in that sense. And then you can use it all together again. So don't throw away your soil, okay? So can I grow, the next question is, can I grow garlic the same way as shallot? Garlic chives, yes, you can. I've actually tried it. It's quite nice. Yeah. I have a small orange plant always infested with eggs that grow to caterpillars. How to stop this, please? A suggestion is caterpillars or butterflies, they are drawn to specific plant types. So maybe a suggestion is to net your orange plant so you prevent pests from coming over. I compost. The next question that I have is, I compost my own soil. Can I use them for such plants? Yes, if you do composting, right, please use the compost that you've actually generated, okay? Yeah, it's healthy, it's good. How to prevent pests? The next question is, how to prevent pests? All my plants always have small white flies. Suggestion is to prune your plants, that's one. Number two is to fertilize your plants, that's two. And to apply organic pesticide, be it soap spray, neem spray, cinnamon powder. Yeah, you can actually do that. So you also want to boost the immune system of the plant by fertilizing it, okay? The next question I have is, why I need to cover the herbal plants? Okay, so if you don't cover the plants, right, and it's organically grown, meaning to say you don't spray pesticides on them, right, the pests will be drawn to it to have a buffet on it. So the question I ask myself is, if the pests don't want to eat your plants in most cases and the plants look really nice, right, is it coated with some kind of force field, I would call it, okay, where the pests do not want to eat your plants? So the whole idea is basically to go as organic as you can, okay, and net your plants up if you see that, and fertilize your plants to improve their immune system, and net your plants up if you constantly have pests coming all over, okay? The next question is, Can I grow edibles without composting, without compost? Yes, you can use any type of fertilizer. I think the idea about compost to me is it is surface level soil, and it gradually breaks down into finer soil, and it comes down into becoming the soil, part of the soil structure altogether. So you can actually use that without compost also, that's fine, but you need to use other types of fertilizer. Okay, the next question is, hi, where to get the earthworms for composting? Okay, so good question for this. For the earthworms, right? You can buy them online or from through resellers. Okay, they actually sell them. I started off using the earthworms that when it rains, they come onto the pavement because the soil is flooding, right? The ground is flooding, so they can't. Those kind of earthworms, they don't do much composting. So you want to just maybe Google composting earthworms. They will tell you the types of composting earthworms that you can get. Okay. Sweet potatoes, gingers with shoots. How to use them to propagate. Okay, for sweet potatoes, right? What I do is I cut off the top. I've never propagated sweet potatoes, to be honest, so I can't really comment on this, but they call them sweet potato slips, the leaves, okay? So you cut off the top, right? And then you stick it into the ground, the sides of the sweet potato, stick it into the ground, and water it, and they'll start to grow all these little sweet potato leaves like runners like that. You can actually consume those, okay? Potatoes, you just bury them into the ground and cover them. Over time, they'll start to multiply. Why you make holes at the side, then you cover with tape? Thank you. So this is for gas exchange for the compost bin. The question is in relation to the compost bin, okay? So when you have all this organic matter breaking down, it releases a lot of gas. The gas needs to come out, okay? So that fresh air can come in. This is how it actually circulates itself, and the breakdown actually takes place. So you need to tape up this, and you don't want undesired pests to come in, okay? My jasmine plant has gone totally bald, bald like me. Okay. All right. Okay. Do you know why it was flowering very well? Probably a lack of fertilizer or nutrients. That's a possibility. Okay. Serai, how much water? Lemongrass. Serai is another word for lemongrass. How much water to put above or below the serai? Okay. So you just put about half an inch of water, that's fine. Or another secret I could share with you is you just take a misting bottle and you just mist it every day. And the roots will start to come out also, okay? The next question is, why can't we water at night? I've shared with some people that sometimes we see our neighbors coming home from dark and they water their plants, which is big plants, and they can actually take that kind of watering. At night, there's no photosynthesis. The roots, the stem, the leaves, they can't really do much without the sunlight. So that's why it's not recommended to water at night. I tried when I started off, I started watering my plants at night. And all the herbs and the vegetables, they all didn't make it, just to share with you. So does putting charcoal and pebbles at the bottom, the next question is, does putting charcoal and pebbles at the bottom of the pot or plastic container help with drainage? Yes, it does. So it's recommended. Yeah. How to salvage a plant with brown leaves showing? Okay, a few ways that we can do this. One is to pinch off all the brown leaves, fertilize your plant. If it's possible to do a stem cutting, not all plants you can do stem cuttings, okay? So if it's possible to do a stem cutting, take a stem cutting, use the green stems instead of the woody stems, not the brown stems, okay? So usually you have like the brown stem and then you have the green stem. Take the green part, put it into soil, and try to start another plant altogether. Okay, the next one is why we find many beetles in the garden, especially at night. So I grew, just to share with you, I grew lady's finger. At night, I have beetles coming on to have a feast and mate at the same time, like it's a park. What you could do, right? That's the nature, they actually eat what they need to eat. You could actually put in cedar wood essence oil into a misting bottle like this. And then you can mist it on your leaves, okay? That will actually deter them from coming. So the next question that we have is how to use fresh chili seeds to grow. Okay, so you just dry out the chili seeds, okay? And what you do is you use a chopstick, you make a hole about 1 inch, okay, 1 inch or slightly more in depth. You just put in the seeds, you bury them, okay. So the idea, you press the soil down. The idea is for the seed to come into contact with the soil, and you water it every day, once a day, morning or afternoon, but never at night, and the seed will slowly start to germinate, okay. The next question is, what is the easiest herb to grow for someone new to planting? I would recommend growing mint, basil. So you can start with these two. The idea about growing what I've learned is not to give up, because every time something happens, you have that experience. The depth of experience actually grows. So you take away knowledge, okay, this didn't work, that didn't work. So do not give up, and eventually you will get there, okay? The next question is, besides banana peel, what else can we use for composting? So we can use stems from vegetables. If you do not use them, you can use carrot peels. I use beetroot peels. Any type of peels that you can use, you just put them in. You can use newspaper. You can use, you know, the soft egg carton type of holder. You can actually use that for composting also, okay? So let me see. Okay, the next question is, must we dry the eggshells before using it? Yes, you just put the entire, let's say the eggshells, right? The half broken eggshells, like the ones that you see over here. You put them into a tub. You just put them out into the sun. You don't have to wash them. You don't have to bake them. You don't have to remove the lining whatsoever. You just put them out into the sun. Okay, once you look at it, it's like dried. You just put it into a Ziploc bag, and you just use a rolling pin to actually crush them. So you have calcium you can then feed your plants with. And if you find that it is still a little bit damp, you just put it out in the sun again. Just, yeah, let it dry out altogether, okay? The next question is it suitable to grow lavender in our hot climate? Yes, it's possible. This is proof. You can actually do a cutting. So when you buy the mother plant, please do a cutting. I think sometimes, this is my own observation, the plants that come from overseas, they take some time to adapt. So the best bet is to actually propagate them and let them adapt to the climate altogether, okay? So this is lavender. The only difference is they do not flower, for me, they do not flower in this hot weather. Yeah, but they smell really nice. Okay, the next question is, where do you get the mother plant from? Okay, you can get it from the garden centers, or you can get it from, sometimes your supermarkets, they do sell them also, or you can buy the ones that they sell for cooking. They come in small little Ziploc bags, and you can use those to actually propagate them, okay? Okay, where do you, sorry, I missed your question. Where do you get the mother plant from? You can buy them from garden centers, okay? So the next question is, does watering edible plants with used water in washing rice help as a fertilizer? No harm to using that so far. I've seen my neighbors do it. My mom-in-law, my father-in-law, he does that also. So yeah, I think there's some nutrients still in that. When you wash your rice, whatever residue that is left, I think that's still, you can actually use it to actually fertilize your plants also. The next question is, can herbs be grown indoor without full sunlight? Unfortunately, it's not possible. So you probably require like LED plant growing light that would actually help you. Yeah. How to get rid, the next question is how to get rid of ants from the pots. Okay, so ants, when they go to the pots, right, there's probably a nest already existing there. So the best bet is to remove the plant and relocate the plant altogether to another pot. And you might want to just loosen up the soil so that you can break up the nest, and then the ants will actually move off from there. So usually when they actually congregate, they come together, it's because they have some form of housing there and they actually stay there. Okay. So the next question is, how do you grow cut stem? Okay, so curry plant, I don't think you can do it through stem cutting. You probably need to start from seed. Okay. How do you do stem cutting? So you have a mother plant like this. Okay, you have a mother plant like this. You cut one of these stems over here, and then you put it into a cup with soil, and you probably need to cover it. Okay, and over time, what will happen is the root system will start to generate at the bottom, and you can remove the cover. You need to water it every day. Okay. And put it in a shaded area. You don't want direct sunlight coming down on it. Why we need to cover is because if you don't cover, right, sometimes what will happen is, if it's a small plant, it may actually dry out because there's no root system to regulate itself, okay? So the next one is how to avoid snails. So if you have a snail infestation already in the soil system, right, what I would suggest is to, you can use a plastic sheet if it's possible, blanket that soil and let the soil completely dry out. So there's anything that is inside there which is dependent on moisture may not survive. The other one is they do sell organic snail pesticide, so you can actually check that out also at the garden centers. Okay, so how do you report a plant? My plants died after reporting. So there's something called shock transplant. In a simpler term, it means sometimes our hands, we may agitate the root system and it's quite sensitive and the plant may actually go into a shock. So the plant might not make it or it might make it. So the best way to do this, right, is you actually squeeze, for repotting, you squeeze the entire surrounding of the pot, okay? And you take out the entire plant, loosely take out the entire plant. Try not to touch and then try not to touch or agitate the root system that much, okay? And then put it into a bigger pot, okay? So the next question is, how do I get rid of caterpillars? So the idea of getting rid comes into the idea of preventing. So I think a suggestion is to prevent caterpillars from coming before getting rid of them. You might want to have a sort of a netting, a clear netting, so that the butterflies, caterpillars, the insects do not come in actually. Okay, the next question is, my basil seedling plants around 1 inch always fall off and stand up again. Why? Okay. Hang on. Sometimes it falls off, right? It's because a few factors here. There's lack of water, the plant actually goes down, okay? And then once you water, it comes back up again. So that's a possibility. The idea is when you do seedlings, right, you want to fill your pot with soil right all the way to the top. So when the plant germinates, it can actually get all the necessary sunlight. It doesn't have to like lean and then become very lengthy and then it might fall over, okay? Okay, the next question is, I have seen that compost alone makes it very mushy. So is it better to do mixed potting soil and compost? That's a possibility that you can consider. So it's a personal choice, to be honest. So for me, personally, I try to keep it simple. I work with what is easier for me. Yeah. Okay, the next question we have is, how to stop my papaya plant to grow too tall? Okay, that's a tough one. I can't really answer that. So it really depends on the species. So yeah. My curry leaves have black spots on the underside. How do I get rid of them? So that's a type of fungus. So you need to just prune off, cut off, trim the stems, which are having leaves that have all the black spots, and fertilize your plants. Give it organic pesticide and see how it goes from there. How to plant dill? Dill, you need to start from seeds. You cannot use stem cuttings, okay? So you have to start from seeds and yeah, you have to start from seeds. The next question is, which edible plant is easiest to grow? For vegetables, I would suggest growing kale. Kale is worth growing because it gives you a lot of leaves. Yep. The next question is, soil sold by store in the wet market, are they organic? So for organic soil, right, they will have some form of labeling or branding, and you can check it out. And if you should wonder whether it's is it organic or non-organic, you can see sometimes the soil, they will say that this is added with synthetic fertilizer or fungicide, okay? So how to grow ginger? Ginger, you just cut a small piece, put it into the soil and then let it grow out slowly. Take some time though. Okay, the next question is, why my compost soil hardened after I put my plants after a few days? One possibility is chemical binding, that's one. Number two is the soil type that you use. So maybe a recommendation to start off with is to use organic soil that is very fluffy and loamy to touch, okay? They don't bind that easily. All right. the next question is, does vinegar mixed with water help to remove white spots on stems of plants? I've not tested vinegar mixed with water, so it's I apologize, it's hard for me to comment on that. Okay, so the next one is, can you show us how to compost soil or how to recycle organic soil? Yes, I can. So what you can do, right, is you have a compost bin going. You have a compost bin going, and then you have a primary and then a secondary bin over here. All the drippings from your organic compost, right, will drip into here. Okay. So what you want to do is, you have existing soil. You just put this tub over here, like this, onto your existing soil. Okay, so just imagine a trough. Okay, just imagine a trough. And you put this with all the drainage holes over here that you can see. All the liquid drippings will go into that soil and will recharge the soil for you. So you don't have to throw away the soil, okay? So the next question is, can we go limau perot? Sorry, limau perot is lime. I'm not sure. Limau perot. Okay, I'm not sure. I've never tried that actually from cutting. So I apologize for that. How to prevent papaya from insects? You probably want to net the papaya up using a stocking or put some kind of protective surrounding around it, okay? Okay, the next question is, how do I get rid of ants' nests at the base of the pandan plant in the garden? I've tried removing the plant, but the ants move there again. All right. There are a few ways. Some people smoke the ant nest out, okay? Some people sort of use soil and loosen up the area where they are at. That is a few things that you can actually consider, okay? So the last question is, how to grow coriander plant. You can buy the coriander seeds from your local supermarket or your garden center, okay? I've tried just planting the seed in and it actually takes off. But in this weather, after a while, it starts to flower. It starts to bulb, so it tastes kind of funny. The other way, what people do is they crush the seed and then they soak it in water for a while and then they plant it. Okay, so you could try both methods and see how it goes. All right. So that was the last question. So that was the last question right now. So just want to share with you. I hope that you found this online workshop informative. If you find the talk useful, do like and share the video out with your family and friends to help them pick up on the useful tips at their own pace and convenience. Do also like and share the C3A Facebook page. And also the Society of Wings Facebook page, where actually they feature all the different types of NSA courses. Yep, where you can actually sign up and actually participate in them. I also teach, just to share with you, I teach an extension of the Urban Permaculture workshop online and offline. So if you're interested to look out for the online advertisement in the Wings Facebook page, okay? So do like and share and follow the C3A Facebook page, because they do have a lot of helpful content coming on. Thank you and goodbye for now.